All right, guys, welcome to Ezekiel 10. Now, yesterday we realized Ezekiel 10 is actually bouncing off of Ezekiel 9. A lot of these chapters are together; they're combined. So a lot of times, and happens in a lot in the Bible when you read stuff. Sometimes the several chapters are connected, and so to get the full context, um, you have to read several chapters so you fully understand what's happening. In this particular instance, we're doing a chapter a day, so we have to go through each chapter one at a time. But we can go back and review what was going on. So this chapter bounces off chapter 9. It's a continued thought, and it's the glory departs from the temple. Give me just 1 second here. Okay, so the glory departs from the temple. I had to go get a bottle of water. And I looked, and there in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubim, there appeared something like a sapphire stone, having the appearance of the likeness of a throne. Now, elsewhere in the Bible, we see the description of the throne of God, and it like the color of sapphire, or the color of a sapphire stone, or like a sapphire stone. And that color, these colors play a big role in descriptions of these things. Verse 2, then he spoke to the man clothed with linen, and said, go in among the wheels, under the cherub, fill your hands with coals of fire, from among the cherubim, and scatter them over the city. And he went in as I watched. Now, you remember what happened to Isaiah? This angel went up and took a coal out of the fire, and went over and touched his lips, so he'd have clean lips. His sins would be forgiven him. So we see this same situation happening here. These coals of fire have reference. They mean something. Verse 3, now the cherubim were standing on the south side of the temple when the man went in, the man in linen, and the cloud filled the inner court. Now, there's only one other person other than God allowed in the inner court. And that's the priest, the high priest. There are certain areas where only a few people are allowed to enter. High priests are allowed to enter the inner court, and the high priest, the top guy, is the only one allowed to enter where the throne of God is. Again, we see more proof this is Jesus Christ because he's the high priest. And he's allowed to enter. Verse 3, now the cherubim were standing on the south side of the temple, and when the man went in, and the cloud filled the inner court. Then the glory of the Lord went up from the cherub and paused over the threshold of the temple. And the house was filled with the cloud. The cloud is the glory of the Lord, and the court was full of the brightness of the Lord's glory. This only happened after Jesus went in. Who is Jesus? The glory of the Lord. He's our glory too. He's the high priest. He was fulfilling prophecy. Verse 5, and the sound of the wings of the cherubim was heard even in the outer court, like the voice of Almighty God when he speaks like thunder. Then it happened, when he commanded the man clothed in linen, saying, take fire from among the wheels, from among the cherubim, that he went in and stood beside the wheels. And the cherub stretched out his hand from among the cherubim to the fire that was among the cherubim. And he took some of it, and put it into the hands of the man clothed with linen, and took it and went out. Now, I don't know at this point if Ezekiel realizes who he's watching. Probably not. But there's only one person ever talked about that is dressed in linen, and that's Jesus Christ. Verse 8, the cherubim appeared to have the form of a man's hand under their wings. And when I looked, there were 4 wheels by the cherubim, one wheel by one cherub, and another wheel by each other cherub. The wheels appeared to have the color of a beryl stone. As for their appearance, all 4 looked alike, as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. This is hence the term Ezekiel's wheel. Verse 11, when they went toward any of their 4 directions. They did not turn aside when they went, but followed in the direction the head was facing. They did not turn aside when they went. And their whole body, with their back, their hands, their wings, and the wheels that the 4 had, were full of eyes all around. As for the wheels, they were called, in my hearing, wheel. So it's a wheel. Verse 14. Each one had 4 faces. The first face was the face of a cherub, the second face the face of a man, the third face the face of a lion, and the fourth the face of an eagle. Very interesting stuff here. Very interesting referencing here. And you can do a dig into this and go back and look at what these references refer to and see. And it's quite astonishing what and who it refers to in the world today. Verse 15, and the cherubim were lifted up. This was the living creature I saw by the river Kebar. When the cherubim went, the wheels went beside them. And when the cherubim lifted their wings to mount up from the earth, the same wheels also did not turn from beside them. When the cherubim stood still, the wheels stood still. And when one was lifted up, the other lifted itself up. For the spirit of the living creature was in them. Then the glory of the Lord departed from the threshold of the temple and stood over the cherubim. And the cherubim lifted their wings and mounted up from the earth in my sight. When they went out, the wheels were beside them. And they stood at the door of the east gate of the Lord's house, and the glory of the God of Israel was above them. This is the living creature I saw under the God of Israel by the river Kebar. And I knew they were cherubim. Each one had 4 faces, and each one 4 wings. And the likeness of the hands of a man was under their wings. And the likeness of their faces was the same as the faces which I had seen by the river Kebar, their appearance and their persons. They each went straight forward. Very interesting how elaborate the description is here. There's meaning behind this. There's meaning behind what he's describing. Now, our imagination can go crazy. We can come up with all kinds of things. People and artists have done renderings of this stuff and what it would look like. And what they'll say is, this is what a cherubim looks like. Wheel within a wheel, eyes all around. Okay, well, you're forgetting the other being with the 4 faces. That stands beside the wheel. And when you see a proper artist rendering and you read this, you're like, okay, that's what it looks like. I have yet to see a proper artist rendering of this. I've seen them render the wheel within a wheel with the eyes, and I've seen them render the cherubim, but they both disagree on which one is which. Well, they're both part of that. So what can we deduce from this? The cherub is the active. The wheel is the inactive, but not inactive because that wheel is the eyes. It sees everything. Those wheels see everything. The 4 faces of the cherub, the 4 emotions, the 4 ways of thinking, the 4 leaderships, the 4 types of personalities, things like that. There's so much in this description of what he was seeing. Now, Ezekiel didn't have no clue what he was seeing until it gets explained to him. If it ever does, I don't know. But there's a lot here in this description. And the reason why this description is so... And you notice he mentions this description 3 times. When the Lord says something 3 times, when it's written down 3 times, there's meaning behind it. Heavy meaning. And we would do well to pay close attention to it. Now, a lot of people can right away say, we have ages represented in the 4 faces. So what are the 4 faces? Let's see. Where's the 4 face description? Yeah, right here, verse 14. Right here. It had 4 faces. The first face was the face of a cherub. That would be God. Or the representation of it. Or the representation of heaven. The second face, the face of a man. The age of man. Third face, the face of a lion. Jesus. Lion of Judah. The fourth face of an eagle. Now, I'm not 100% sure about the eagle. I said that it takes a lot of study to figure out what some of this stuff may be referencing or what it's referring to. Digging into the original language would probably help. I'm not sure of anybody who's really done that. But... and I can't do that in this video because these videos are short. You can also look at this as representations of leadership. Cherub, leadership of God. Man, the leadership of mankind. The lion, leadership of Britain. Eagle, leadership of America. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can go with it. Probably all of them are wrong, but if we do a deeper study, we might find that out. There's a lot here, though. So the next chapter, chapter 11, is judgment on wicked counselors. So the fact that he dedicated an entire chapter just to describing this. Now what we're seeing here, and what we see at the beginning of Ezekiel, is a description of the transportation device of the glory of God, of the throne. Because he says in this chapter, he looked and he saw the throne in there. These four wheels, it was like a vehicle. He describes it like a vehicle, like it moves. And these four wheels seem like they're what the throne rides on. Are we going to see this in heaven? Probably. See, there's more to heaven than what we realize. And this book describes a lot of these things and tells us a lot of these things and makes us very aware of a lot of these things. When we go back to, let's go back to Revelation real quick and look at Revelation chapter 5. So, when you read chapter 5, you have, well, actually chapter 4 is better because it tells you some of the people that are around there. We can go to Hebrews. Remember, we found in Hebrews the description of the different groups that are in heaven at this time. You can read in here these different groups that are here. So, he hears a voice. I'm going to show you some things. He was in the Spirit, got taken up, and he saw a throne. And the one that sat there was like a jasper and a sardis stone in appearance, a rainbow around the throne in appearance like an emerald. So it was a rainbow with a green hue. Around the throne were 24 thrones. There were 24 elders on that throne. So already we see God being mentioned and the 24 elders. And there were 7 lamps of fire there around the throne. In front of the throne was a sea of glass like crystal. In the midst of the throne and around the throne were 4 living creatures full of eyes in front and in back. He doesn't describe them as wheels within a wheel, but is he describing the same thing that is always there? Well, it's 4, just like he described in Ezekiel. Full of eyes, front and back. So that's probably the 4 wheel within a wheel cherubim creatures there. Notice it says in verse 7, the first living creature was like a lion, the second living creature like a calf, the third living creature like the face of a man, and the fourth living creature like the face of an eagle. A flying eagle. It was like a flying eagle. So we're seeing this almost identical description between Ezekiel 10 and Revelation chapter 4. These are living there around the throne. The 4 living creatures having 6 wings, full of eyes around and within. They do not rest day or night. So these are always there. We're going to see these things in heaven. What Ezekiel is describing is also what John is describing. We're going to see that in heaven. So this is what we have described so far. Now you jump over to chapter 5. Now what do we see? Okay, so we know who's already there. The 4 living creatures. God on his throne. The 24 elders. Now what does he have going on here? So if you go down here, we got an angel, supposedly an angel leading him around. Jesus walks in, and then we have verse 8. Now when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb. So we have God, Jesus, the 4 living creatures that carry the throne of God around or escorted around, which we saw in Ezekiel, and the 24 elders singing a song, and have made for us kings and priests. And I looked and I heard the voice of many angels around the throne, the living creatures and the elders, and the number of them. And remember, we just read yesterday, innumerable company of angels, as repeated in Hebrews. I believe it was Hebrews 12. The number of these angels is 10,000 times 10,000. That's not innumerable, and thousands and thousands. About 104, 105 million. And they're speaking. So there's another group of people. And every creature which is in heaven, on the earth, under the earth. Are there creatures in heaven? Are there animals in heaven? Evidently, some form of it. We're going to see all this. These are all existing there. So what Ezekiel is describing, we see, again, another connection to the book of Revelation, just like Daniel, just like Isaiah, just like Jeremiah. Ezekiel's being given a very descriptive version of what's going on here. But we see the same 4 creatures in heaven. We'll get to see those creatures. We'll get to see what they actually are. We'll get to see them for what they are. See, the Lord is preparing us for that because he's opening these things up and helping us understand what these are. So when you get there, you're not going to freak out. But there's so much there that we can't even fathom. And he tries to show it to us here. But our primitive minds can't understand this. Our limited understanding can't grasp these concepts. Study the Bible and you'll start to. You'll start to understand how much more glorious God is and how much more glorious heaven is. What's more important? carnivals and big giant houses and treasure rooms full of gold, having barbecues in the backyard of everybody's houses? Or is it God? So you start to change your view on a lot of things when you read through this stuff, and you're like, there's a whole lot more going on here than I realize. And it's a whole lot more than just my carnal understanding. It's very spiritual. It's beyond my ability to grasp, because I can't fully imagine what this looks like unless God gives me the ability to. Ezekiel's getting a full view of it. John got a full view of it. Jeremiah and Isaiah got a little view of it. Daniel got a full view of it. So we can start to connect the dots between these prophets. Now this goes back to what Jesus said. They have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear them. He kept referring back to the prophets. He kept referencing their books and their writings. He kept leading everybody back to that. Go back and read them, and you'll see. It'll help you understand. That's why I'm doing these books. That's why I'm going through this. This is why the Lord led me to do this. Because this is going to help us. So that was Ezekiel 10. Full of stuff. And you can see right away, we got connections going all over the place. And that's just touching it. That's not even the full connection. And we're only on chapter 10. This goes up to 48 chapters. There's a lot more to cover yet. We've already covered a lot. So instead of us letting our imaginations run wild, let us be sober-minded and read it for what it says and look deeper into the language and find out what he's telling us. It'll help us understand what he's doing. It'll help us understand what we're doing, and it'll help us understand heaven better. It'll help us make more sense of some of these things. So when somebody comes and they ask this question, that question, or they even accuse, you can come back with them and go, well, if you read in Ezekiel, bang, bang, this, the original language says this and that and the other, and they'll just look at you like, how do you know so much about this? You go to seminary? Nope. They don't teach this in seminary. I did it the hard way. I read the book for myself and looked at the original language in a concordance myself. That's the hard way. Because that's the way nobody else wants to do it. Read the book for yourself, and he will open your eyes. If you're willing to receive it, he will open your eyes, and it's amazing. And then you're going to start to be able to picture these things. You're going to start to be able to imagine these things. You're going to start to be able to have a greater and deeper understanding of these things. And what happens when that happens? The fear goes away. The apprehension goes away. The doubt goes away. The questions go away. And you learn to stand in faith and just say, Lord, I am in awe of your power. And this book has so much in it, I can't even begin to dig down into the depth of what it holds. But I'm sure going to try. So that's what we're doing. So tomorrow will be Ezekiel 11, Judgment on Wicked Counselors. Today, and it's going to be a continuation, because he says, then the Spirit lifted me up. And you're going to see something interesting. You remember what we talked about yesterday when they were, well, actually, it was Ezekiel 9 or 8. He was talking about, look at them. They pray to the east with their back to the temple, worshiping the sun. Yeah, they do this right here. You can see it in the first verse, second verse, third verse maybe. They're doing it again because he took them to the east gate to show them what was going on. They were praying out the east gate, not because they were praying to God, but because they were praying to the sun. They were glorifying the sun god. They were worshiping the sun. They weren't worshiping God, because if they were worshiping God, they'd have been facing the temple, because that's where God was. He gave them a focal point, and they ignored it. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn a lot. Stay with me through this book, because there's a lot here. There's a whole lot here. We're obviously not going to touch on all of it, but we're sure going to try. All right, guys, that was Ezekiel 10. Thank you all for watching. I will see you in the next video.